So let's talk about authority in real life. If the Bible's authority is questionable, does that mean Christianity itself falls apart? Or can faith exist without relying on it as an absolute?
Okay, we're really getting into some fire now. So I'm gonna answer this question in two parts. All right. So is the Bible's authority? If the Bible authority is questionable, does that mean Christianity itself falls apart? That's a good question. Okay, so if you tell me something has authority because of this, let's just take the New Testament for instance in the Gospels. They try to tell us that that these four books, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, are authoritative because they are first-hand accounts. Those are some of the things they say. There's a first-hand account. These are by his disciples, or they're by people who heard from their disciples. And that is what gives them authority because these people witnessed Jesus or either were taught by witnesses of Jesus.
Mhm.
I ask people all the time, where did you get that these books were written by the people that it's ascribed to? You have none. Okay. If you read the books themselves, they are by anonymous authors. They are not written by a guy named Mark. They are not written by a guy named Luke. They are not written by a guy named Matthew. And they are not written by a guy named John. Find anywhere in the book where the authors identify themselves. They do not. They're anonymously written books. They were not ascribed names till around 150 years after they were written. They just went by the message of, or the gospel of, or the biography of, but there was no name of this. Also, if you go into the books themselves, and this is what I'm trying to get people to understand, let's read the prologue of Luke. Luke tells you from him in the book itself. He says he's writing it for a guy named Theophilus, and he tells him, "I have researched this. I have spoken to people who knew people who knew people." So that means he is getting third hand information from his own words. He
Mhm.
talked to people who talked to people who talked to people. So these are not first-hand accounts. These are not eyewitnesses who wrote these stories. These are people who have been hearing these stories after being translated decades and decades in a different part of the country, speaking a completely different language. And most of the things that these people write are mistranslations. Every single prophecy of Jesus that is written in the Bible, his virgin birth story, uh, they're mistranslations. The Old Testament was written in Hebrew. These New Testament writers spoke Greek. When they're reading prophetic translations from Hebrew to Greek, they're mistranslating the words. I'll give you a simple example, a quick example. The entire virgin birth narrative of Jesus is bullshit. It's a mistranslation of a verse in Isaiah. In the book of Isaiah, King Ahaz is about to be warred upon. Israel is split. He's in the tribe of Judah. The tribe of Israel is finna attack him, and I believe the Syrians or somebody from the he's about to be attacked from two fronts. And he goes to the prophet Isaiah, and Isaiah tells him, "Look, don't worry. There is and he uses the Hebrew word alma. There's a alma. The Hebrew word alma means young girl. It does not mean a girl from without sex. It does not mean virgin. It just means young. And if you read the story, Isaiah says, look, this woman is already pregnant. She is going to conceive a son, and we're going to name him Emmanuel, God with us. And before this child is old enough to know good from evil, you ain't even going to have to do anything. Those two people are going to break away themselves. God's going to handle it. Now,
Mhm.
you fast forward to that, to when Matthew is reading that in his native language of Greek, he reads Alma, which translates in Greek to virgin. It's a mistranslation. But it got picked up and added in, and that's why. And so here's my thing: when pastors and church clergy and people are authoritative on the text know this, they continuously teach the lie of the virgin birth narrative, knowing it's a mistranslation. So that's why I'm saying if you read and do your own critical thinking, you can find the lies yourself. You don't need a pastor. You don't need him. I mean, it's clear as day. So, second half of your question: can faith exist without relying on the text being absolute? Faith in itself is a tricky question because faith is the belief in something without evidence. So I contend there's no God in religion at all because your entire faith deals with the belief in man. So if you read a text about Jesus, you never met Jesus, you don't know Jesus, you have to read this Bible or you have to take your pastor's word that Jesus was a real person, that this theology is real. Your belief in him is in this book. It's not in God. He did not reveal himself to you. He didn't find you important enough to show himself to you. He only ordained himself to that minister or that pastor. He's the only one that gets this word or gets this. So when you deal with faith in itself, you're believing in something without any evidence. And when you deal with somebody that is willing to believe in something without evidence, you can't really argue with that person. If I tell you I have one object and I have another object, and I put those objects together and I have two. And you say, no, 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 you have four. My faith tells me it's personal to me, it's deep to me. That's four objects. You can't argue with that. You have to let that go. So faith in itself is a tricky situation.
Well, do you think people lean more on the authority of the Bible or the authority of pastors and churches interpreting it?
They most definitely lean on the pastors and the churches interpreting it. As we talked about it, we'll continue to talk about. People do no critical thinking for themselves. They do no outside thought. They don't study. People are not really Christianity and religion to most people is just a thing. You know, they go to church on Sunday. They go to Easter. They go to Christmas. It's just a thing. They may pray when times are bad. They may wait. You know, those type of things. But they don't actually study the theology, the religion, and try to seek what these texts really meant. What did this author mean when he wrote this 2,900 years ago? What did this mean in first century Palestine? What did this mean 1,900 years ago when Mark wrote this? Does that still correlate to me today? Does what he was talking about then mean the same thing as it meant today? Is he even writing that thinking that we're going to survive till today? Most of Jesus people and believers thought that Jesus was come back tomorrow, and the next week, next Monday. They were not writing this for us. They didn't think it was going to be no us. They thought the world, Jesus thought the world was coming to an end now. Paul thought the world was coming to an end. Now, they were not writing this for us. They were writing this for these people because this is happening now. So that's the first thing people have to understand. Reading these scriptures in this contextual lens, in what it was meant for. And no, people don't do that. Pastors are able to manipulate them now and spit out a verse here, spit out a verse here to get you, and it's all about control. That's what it's about.
So, at the end of the day, why does this question matter so much for Black people in particular?
Because until you open your eyes into free thought of what you're learning and what you're thinking and what you're taking as scripture and putting your whole entire life into this, shouldn't you know the truth behind it? Shouldn't you have your own contextual thought behind it without a pastor who might maybe has educated himself on it? Whenever you have somebody who has educated themselves on something, you're uneducated, and they spit it out to you and teach you, and you don't question them, you are a slave. You have just enslaved yourself to that person mentally. That means I'm not going to challenge you whatsoever. I'm not going to push back, even when something is contradictory. Even though I could read Genesis 1, flip the page to Genesis 2 and see that these two contradicted themselves. If you can't confront your teacher on that and get an understanding of this, then you are a slave. And the whole goal of this show is to free you from religious slavery. I want you to be free. Look at the text, understand the historical premise behind it, and think for yourself. That is what this is about. So I hope y'all love today's lesson and liked it. I hope y'all like, subscribe, and tune in for more because we are coming. Thank you guys so much.